Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go out to the left, we go out to the right, we go out to the middle of independence, we go out to all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
All right, guys. Today's date, August 24th, 2022, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan on the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week to try to make sense of it all. Before we do get started, guys, we do like to say that we are a news-first podcast, which means we try to watch your language, and sometimes words do fly at the same time, guys. There may be things that might be shown that might be too intense for younger viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So, how do we begin this? Well, let's start with the elephant in the room, folks. We knew this was coming since yesterday, the 23rd, and of course on the 24th, Biden did put out his plan. And just before this podcast got started, Biden decided to go ahead and do his press conference. You already see, well, again, this is about the student debt forgiveness plan. And let's just say I got some thoughts after this.
Our approach is why America's economic recovery was faster and stronger than any other advanced nation in the world. Now it's time to address the burden of student debt in the same way. Working closely with the Secretary of Education, he's got the hard job, Secretary Cardona. Here's what my administration is going to do to provide more breathing room for people so they have less burdened by student debt. And quite frankly, to fix the system itself, which when we came in, we both acknowledged was broken in terms of, anyway. There are three key factors what we're going to do today. First, we've made incredible progress advancing America's economic recovery. We've wound down pandemic relief programs like the ones on unemployment insurance and small businesses. It's time we do the same thing for student loans. Student loan payments pause is going to end. It's going to end December 30. I'm extending to December 31st, 2022, and it's going to end at that time. It's time for the payments to resume. Second, my campaign for president, I made a commitment that would provide student debt relief. And I'm honoring that commitment today. Using the authority Congress granted the Department of Education, we will forgive $10,000 in outstanding federal student loans. In addition, students who come from low-income families, which allowed them to qualify to receive a Pell Grant, will have their debt reduced $20,000. Both of these targeted actions are for families who need it the most. Working and middle-class people hit especially hard during the pandemic, making under $125,000 a year. You make more than that, you don't qualify. No high-income individual or high-income household on top of the 5%, in the top 5% of incomes, by the way, will benefit from this action, period. In fact, about 90% of the eligible beneficiaries make under $75,000 a family. Here's what that means. If you make under $125,000, you get $10,000 knocked off your student debt. If you make under $125,000 a year and you received a Pell Grant, you'll get an additional $10,000 knocked off that total, for a total of $20,000 relief. 95% of the borrowers can benefit from these actions. That's 43 million people. Of the 43 million, over 60% are Pell Grant recipients. That's 27 million people who will get $20,000 in debt relief. Nearly 45% can have their student debt fully canceled. That's 20 million people who can start getting on with their lives. All this means people can finally crawl out from under that mountain of debt to get on top of their rent and their utilities, to finally think about buying a home or starting a family or starting a business. And by the way, when this happens, the whole economy is better off. In the coming weeks, the Department of Education will lay out in detail a short and simple form to apply for this relief, along with information when this application process opens.
President Biden, you know you fucked up, right? You know you fucked up. Y'all, there's no way that I can go with this. Let me just go ahead and say it. I know a lot of people right now are saying it's something because a lot of people, a lot of Democrats were calling for canceling out student loan debt, which was a little over $1.7 trillion. Biden had the ability. Biden kept kicking the can down the road. And a lot of people were sitting there saying that Biden didn't keep his promise. Biden didn't keep his promise student relief debt. The fact that you either got 20,000 or 10,000 knocked off is a drop in the bucket. The fact that, not everybody is making well over 125,000. A lot of people are under that margin. So therefore, the debt is still going to remain with them for several years. When I first saw this, all I could sit there and say was, you fucked up. How is it that, of course, with it being midterms next month, that above all else, the Republicans gave you a gift? Republicans just a matter of a month ago. It's amazing what a difference a month can make. As a matter of a month ago, Republicans attacked women's rights. They fought along with a conservative over Supreme Council to overturn Roe versus Wade. Trigger laws in heavily conservative states went into effect, making it harder for women to have the rights of their own reproductive bodies. Republicans handed Democrats the midterms. They really did. All Biden had to do was put the kibosh on it. Say that you're canceling the total amount of the student loan debt. Had he did that, or decriminalized marijuana and pretty much broke out all those that had lower drug offenses, the Democrats would have won by a landslide. Now that Biden, just a few moments ago, President Biden a few moments ago decided to tell us the student loan plan, again, puts it right back in 50-50. Because a lot of people are going to be dismayed by this. A lot of people were expecting a lot more than 10,000 or 20,000 because that was the numbers that Biden stuck on. But people forget Biden is a centrist Democrat. Centrists are middle of the road. Centrists are so lightly conservative that they're not yet called Republican. They're actually one level above moderate Democrats. He's a centrist. He's a centrist Democrat, which is basically just lightly seasoned Republican. And we should not be surprised by this because he tries to use his kids, saying his kids had to work to pay off their student loan debt, which again, it's easy to say because when his kids go to school. That's why I sat there and said the current president seems to be a little out of touch with reality. But let's cover a few things first. A lot of people say the president failed in his campaign promises. Now, don't get me wrong. He failed in a lot of his campaign promises. His Build Back America plan never came to fruition. It became a watered-down Inflation Reduction Act plan, which, again, was still stripped of a lot of things that would have made it better, only to appease two senators. He did not get the Voting Rights Act or the John Lewis Act passed, which, again, if either one of those was put into effect, moreover the Voting Rights Act, we would not have half the problems that we're expecting with these Republicans the upcoming election. He also did not get the George Floyd police reform bill passed because, again, Republicans were not going to play ball, and he didn't want to tick off his police voting unions. Again, a centrist president. And just to put the kibosh on it all, he failed to protect women's rights because they knew this was coming ever since Republicans ramrodded two Supreme Court picks to give them an overabundance of conservatives in the Supreme Court. He acted too little, too late to codify women's rights. Again, he does not, along with his progressive, now turned conservative agenda, didn't make it. But the one thing I will say in this, though, he did actually keep his promise as far as what the amount he was going to do. And we got the video to prove it.
A lot of folks are hoping that this day just would not come.
Certainly were, Ron, and a lot of people are calling on the president to forget all of that debt. Now, some on social media, including the ACLU, are even bringing up President Joe Biden, saying he was in favor of doing it while on the campaign trail.
Even just like a little bit of money to help repay those loans would be really helpful.
So let's verify, did President Biden pledge to forgive federal student debt loan? Our sources are Joe Biden's 2020 campaign website, the White House Communications Office, Federal Reserve Economic Data, Federal Student Aid, and the U.S. Department of Education. During the campaign, President Biden said his job and the economic recovery agenda would focus on providing relief from student debt.
I'm prepared to write off the $10,000 debt.
His 2020 campaign website confirms his plan to cancel a minimum of $10,000 of federal student loan debt. He also went as far as to say he'd forgive all undergraduate tuition-related federal student debt from public colleges and universities and private HBCUs for people making up to $125,000 per year. So, yes, we can verify President Joe Biden has previously pledged to forgive at least $10,000 of federal student loan debt for each borrower.
So, yeah. I mean, yeah, $10,000 was easy. Easy. It was, that's why I said, yeah, he kept his campaign promise because he gave a number that was easily obtainable. He got a number that was easily obtainable, but that's like kicking a field goal from 2 inches away from the post. It's hard to miss that. At the same time, guys, this is the point that I keep making, that it's low-hanging fruit. Because, yes, it is getting closer to midterms. Democrats need all the wins they can get. Republicans have yet to produce anything but say no and defend Trump. So, yes, Democrats are going to try to get additional wins on the board to secure minorities and women's and other people's voting to ensure they either keep the House or the Senate, or bonus, be able to keep both and extend their control of the Congress. That being said, however, I can't help but look at the president and say, you gave Ukraine all the love in the world. You sent them a $1 billion foreign aid package that included assistance, monetary and military, over $1 billion worth. You passed that with no question. You didn't give them restrictions. At the same time, there is that other elephant in the room, the PPP loans. And there's one thing about the PPP loans I want to point out. Number one, this right now from ProPublica, that's actually tracking the Paycheck Protection Program. Here it is as it stands. $11.5 million loans were approved. Over nearly 969,000 organizations were approved for loans between $150,000 and $10 million. Amount approved, $793 billion. Amount forgiven includes any accrued interest, $742 billion. Let me say that again. Amount approved for this Paycheck Protection Program was nearly 794. Well, let's be honest. Let's give the exact amount. $793 billion was approved for this travesty of a government plan. The amount forgiven was $742 billion. You know what that tells me? That tells me that $51 billion is still expected to either be forgiven or paid out. But if you look at the Paycheck Protection Program, which is still active under Biden's watch, more than the majority of what was approved has been forgiven for organizations that have asked for loans between $150,000 and $10 million. $150,000 and $10 million possibly forgiven within that $742 billion of an amount that was approved for $793 billion, which the difference is $51 billion. Explain. I say it all the time. Explain. Explain how the PPP loan can allow businesses who, by the way, the PPP loan itself, for the simple fact of the matter, had lack of oversight to almost where everyone could be approved, even though they may have not qualified as a small business, which is exactly what the PPP loan was for. But almost everybody can get a loan, whether you had a business or not. And as you can see from ProPublica website, more than the majority has already been forgiven. $742 billion out of $793 billion has been forgiven, which means those same businesses that took out those loans will never have to pay a dime back. But you are asking nearly 40 million Americans to pay back their student loans who do not have the means or other opportunities that these businesses do, which could have got the money from somewhere else, but decided to take it because they knew how broken the program was and knew that they and did not know. Now, I will say this, a lot of businesses didn't know their loans were going to be forgiven, but hey, they got forgiven. So why, and I stress this so much to the Biden administration. What does Ukraine and big businesses have over you to where they can have free money or have money be given to them and forgiven? But when it comes to the students who are now adults that may or may not have degrees, but have student loan debt that is keeping them from purchasing a house, that is keeping them from moving forward in life, that is damaging the credit profiles. Because again, credit profiles, debt to income ratios, student loans add into that debt. And if your debt to income ratio is terrible, then yes, it is going to affect your way of life. But yes, President Biden, please tell me how this drop in the bucket is going to help. Because the way I see it, you just made the midterms that much more difficult for Democrats to come out swinging and winning. Only because you are so out of touch with reality that it's disturbing. But businesses get their loans forgiven and still keep their money. But I guess students, because of this age-old thing of if you took out the loans, and let me also stress that too. Nothing was done about the banks, by the way. You understand, banks can still give out student loans. No terms and conditions have changed. None. Banks can still write the terms and conditions how they see fit. They can write the interest rate how they see fit. Nothing of that has changed. Where is that in the student debt forgiveness bill? Where is it that banks have to actually adhere to a certain status of loans, financing, and interest rates? None of that can be found. But President Biden kicked the can this entire time, and this is what you have to show for it. As much as you kept your campaign promise of $10,000, it's still, to me, a failed promise. That being said, guys, we're going to go ahead and switch gears for a second because we do have some stories involving law enforcement, especially this one about the story of this man who was shot and killed by police. And of course, word of warning, this is highly graphic.
Yo, what's up, my man? Hey, what's my man? Now. All right. Don't go back to sleep. Just over there. I got you. Okay. All right. Thank you.
I said, how much have you been drinking?
Just a couple. That's one. I had 1.5. That was it.
So, is it a couple, or is it one, or is it 1.5? I'm going to go down and up. Focus on the tip of my finger. All right, just take a deep breath in. Put your mouth over the mouthpiece. Blow as hard as you can until I tell you to stop. Blow, 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 blow. Stop. Very good.
I just had a few drinks. That's it.
I think you've had too much to drink to be driving. Put your hands behind your back for me. Here, put your hands behind your back.
Hey, stop fighting. Stop fighting. Stop fighting. Stop fighting. You're gonna get tased. You're gonna get tased. Stop. Mr. Wrong. Stop. Come on, man. Stop. You're gonna get tased. Mr. Wrong. Hands off the taser. Hands off the taser. Stop fighting. Hands off the taser.
As prosecutors, we are guided by the law and by the facts, and that's what we did.
Okay, so remember that story? Well,
have you ever wondered what a black...
Oh, that didn't work the way I intended. So, with that story, guys, keep in mind, that was Rayshard Brooks, a man who was literally shot, right? Shot and killed by police officers after that dispute. Now, unfortunately, a special prosecutor in Georgia, let me actually get that up to where you guys can see it. A special prosecutor announced Tuesday that the murder and assault charges will be dismissed against the two Atlanta police officers involved in the shooting. As they said, the special prosecutor both acted as reasonable officers who would, under the facts and circumstances of the events of that night, both acted in accordance with well-established law and were justified in the use of force regarding the situation. Were justified in the force, justified the force regarding the situation. He turned and took the taser and shot it. Therefore, the other officer, Brooks, decided to withdraw his service weapon and fire. How is that? And of course, those are the two officers right there. But I'm sorry. How is that justified? It's a taser. Tasers is non-lethal. Yes, he got it away from you. But whose fault was that? Officers are usually trained to actually pretty much keep their weapons to themselves. But at the same time, even though he did draw the officer's taser and use it on him, what justification is there that the officer can pull his gun and shoot him? His life's not in danger. It's non-lethal. So again, I'm trying to figure out why in Atlanta are these two officers are about to get off when one of them literally murdered an individual who did not put them in a life-threatening situation. That's where I'm lost. I am stuck. I am wondering on that, really. But we'll follow that story as it develops. Another story that we did find out, guys, imagine if you're a pregnant woman and you get pulled over. You're on a dirt road in the middle of nowhere. So you decide that you're going to pull to a gas station just because you want to be somewhere where it can be dimly, where it can be lit, where it can be seen, things of that nature, and the officer pulls a gun on you. It happened to this woman.
Fallout from a pregnant Florida mother handcuffed at gunpoint by a sheriff's deputy during a traffic stop as her 3 children watched. The deputy has resigned. TJ Holmes joins us with more about what happened and how the sheriff is responding this morning, TJ.
And Trey, look, we have talked right here plenty of times, shown almost seemed like countless videos of police interactions with citizens that escalate to the point even with deadly consequences. So in the video you're about to see of this interaction, it's the citizen, the pregnant mother, who takes on the role of having to de-escalate a situation, and she's doing this while a screaming officer has his gun pointed at her.
You make any movement, that'll be your last mistake you're going to make.
A Florida sheriff's deputy has resigned after body cam video released over the weekend shows him draw his gun on a pregnant mom during a traffic stop.
You don't know how a traffic stop works?
Bradford County Sheriff's Deputy Jacob Dessous handcuffed Ebony Washington, her 3 young kids watching from inside the car. Washington tells them to keep recording. This all started Friday evening when Dessous blared his sirens on a dark rural road, signaling Washington to pull over for speeding. After driving about a mile farther to the next gas station, she tries to explain she'd done so in order to be in a better lit area. The body cam video shows her exiting her car with her hands up.
The reason why I did not stop is because I'm in the middle of nowhere and my cousin tell me. I don't care about why. Just shut up. Yes, sir. About the why. Yes, sir. Don't care about the why.
But I let him know I'm pregnant, sir. I'm 4 months pregnant, because I felt like how hard he pulled me that he would actually like throw me to the ground.
In an ABC News exclusive with her daughters, Washington says she knew her decisions in that moment were critical.
I didn't give him a reason for him to harm me in front of my children. And so my calmness really just came in because I was afraid for my life.
I was really scared for my mom and I didn't know what they were going to do to her.
Washington's husband believes the officer's reaction went well beyond what was necessary.
She was treated as though she was a terrorist, for simply not pulling over within the time frame the officer believed that she should have.
Bradford County Sheriff Gordon Smith tells ABC News he's disappointed this happened and we don't deal with black and white, we deal with right and wrong. The sheriff says Washington did exactly the right thing.
She explains to him, she's flashing lights to get to a lit area. Okay, well, that's what I want my wife to do. That's what I want my daughter to do. That's what I want my neighbor to do if you feel unsafe.
Washington's attorney now vows to pursue any avenue to prevent this type of thing from happening to others.
How law enforcement is supposed to react on a speeding ticket, but we see it more and more, and usually it involves stereotype. Usually it involves, racial injustice.
And although she says she was terrified, this mom wanted to send a message.
I'm not that type of person. I'm an educated woman. And so I felt like I needed to loosen that stereotype that may have been in their head.
We have reached out to that Deputy Dessous. We did not hear back. And you all, there's no shortage of stories out there of people impersonating police officers, pulling people over. That's led to assault and death. This is what people might recommend that your loved ones do. You pull over somewhere safe. Police themselves
The sheriff said
recommend you do this for the sheriff, deputy safety, and for the citizen safety. And you said it. We were talking. She put her hazards on. She wasn't speeding. She gave the indication that she was not fleeing.
And she kept calm. It was the officer, as she said, who was.
Yeah. Imagine that. Imagine that you literally kept calm while an officer got agitated and pulled his gun on you, simply put, because you wanted to get to an area to where you feel safe. And of course, the officer did resign, wasn't available for comment. But why are we surprised? Why are we surprised that if in this day and age, for most minorities, when they do get pulled over for traffic citations, you have to be careful. You have to be calm. Why? Because you're going to run a deputy that's going to sit there and say, well, I got the gun, I got this, you're not going to go anywhere, you're not going to do this. Imagine hearing that and you're pregnant with kids in the car. You have to be calm. Why? Because the trigger-happy cop on the other side is looking for any reason to fire. I keep saying this about law enforcement. Until law enforcement changes in the U.S., and there's multiple ways it can change. Number one, a better vetting process. Number two, longer training. Number three, I think there needs to be some more laws against the police. Michael Render, Killer Mike, said this best. You want police shootings and beatings to stop? Attack the money. Anytime there is a police shooting, anytime there's any action involving police that has led to injury or loss of life, take it out of the police pensions. If you attack the money, watch how quickly these things stop. Because that's the one thing. It's one thing you gotta say about our country. Money runs everything. If you attack the money, I guarantee it stops. Even more so, we do have another instrument of law enforcement that's currently developing, and this one again, it's almost to the point to where it shouldn't be normal, but at the same time, in 2022, it's still shocking to see it.
Investigation after a disturbing video went viral, and a warning: that video is hard to watch. It shows the Arkansas cops hitting and kicking a suspect. The video was recorded outside a convenience store in Mulberry, Arkansas. You can see the officers holding the man to the ground there, and at one point even slamming his head onto the concrete. NBC News correspondent Guad Venegas is tracking this story for us today and joins us from our Miami bureau. Guad, what else do we know about this video and who's involved here in the investigation, where it stands?
Aaron, this video went viral Sunday morning. We know that hours after authorities responded, Arkansas State authorities saying they have begun an investigation. All three officers have been suspended. Two of them are sheriff deputies, and the other is a local police officer. All three of them have been suspended. We also have information on the suspect that was arrested after this. He's been identified as Randall Ray Worcester. He's being charged with 7 different things, including battery and resisting arrest. We have heard also from local authorities, the mayor and the sheriff, both saying that this is under investigation. The mayor saying he was shocked and sickened. Meanwhile, the sheriff said he condemns all violence against anyone that is detained by police. So we'll wait for more details as this investigation continues. Aaron.
Crazy, isn't it? Like, what are the reason? Like, unless you are fighting officers, I don't see the reason why it went to that level. Which, again, it's got to be a whole nother story. Police overreacting, police not using the right tactics, police not using the escalation tactics. We're going to be asking questions of how it got that far and what's going to happen to the officers. Because, again, with the track record that law enforcement has had lately, it's pretty much been a slap on the wrist. We'll see. But another report has came out. Again, we're going back to Mar-a-Lago because Trump still believes that, well, he believes that the FBI and everybody else is out to get him. But what has been discovered, what the FBI has looked into so far, is kind of disturbing as far as what he got away with. We should all be looking at Trump. Well, he actually should be in a jail cell, but I'll let them explain it.
The New York Times is reporting that former President Trump had more than 300 classified documents on the premises after he left office. And now Trump is responding to the search in court. Senior national correspondent Terry Moran has the latest.
The New York Times is reporting that more than 300 classified documents have been retrieved from Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence, including documents from the CIA, National Security Agency, and FBI on a variety of topics of national security interests. Concern over those 300 documents triggered the criminal investigation, still in its early stages, probing whether Trump and his aides may have mishandled material, refused to turn it over, or even lied about it. Since last year, the National Archives has been seeking documents Trump took when he departed the White House. Under U.S. law, they remain government property. The Times is reporting that Trump himself went through those boxes in late 2021 and resisted calls to turn over what was at Mar-a-Lago, telling advisors they're mine, but they're not his. In federal court on Monday, Trump filed to halt the Justice Department's review of the material seized in the search, requesting a special master. That's an outside individual appointed by the court to do so instead. Trump also demanded that the documents be returned, claiming executive privilege. But as a former president, Trump's claim of privilege is thin. The documents belong to the National Archives.
So previous presidents have also taken home material that subsequently had to be returned to the government after negotiations ensued. In this case, those negotiations had been going on for months, and the FBI was so concerned about the classified material that Trump has that they decided they had to move. Diane?
All right, Terry Moran, thank you. And let's talk a little bit more about that motion filed by the former president with ABC News investigative reporter Catherine Falders and host and legal analyst for the Law and Crime Network, Terry Austin. Thank you both for being here. Catherine, what can we expect after this court filing from Trump's lawyers?
Was overly broad, that it was against his constitutional rights. DOJ, and this is rare for them so quickly, responded in a statement last night saying that this was authorized by a federal court, that there was probable cause for the warrant, and that they will be responding to Trump's motion in court. Now, it's significant because DOJ does not talk publicly, typically, about ongoing investigations. They've always said that they're going to speak through court filings. So this motion has opened up an opportunity for DOJ to respond to some of these questionable claims made by Trump in this motion yesterday. So we could learn more information about the search leading up to the search and potentially any violations of criminal codes here.
Now, Terry, the motion from Trump requests a more detailed receipt from the government of the items that were seized, and that the DOJ return any items that were seized that aren't within the scope of the search warrant. Does he have a right to some of these documents?
Well, he very well could have a right to some of the documents if it turns out that they are personal documents and they were swept up when there was the search that was conducted. But we've already learned that most of these documents were classified or top secret documents, and those documents do belong to the National Archives. They do not belong to the president personally. You can make the analogy as if you were working for a company, and when you left that company, you are not supposed to take those documents. So I don't think that the argument that Trump is making at this point is a very strong or valid argument.
Terry, the motion also included this message from President Trump to the Attorney General, warning that people all over the country are angry about the raid and that, quote, the heat is building up, the pressure is building up. Whatever I can do to take the heat down, to bring the pressure down, just let us know. That was the quote that his lawyers attributed to Trump as a message to the Attorney General. Why put that in the filing?
I think, Diane, that is a political message. Trump is trying to make this a political argument. It is, it seems, if you read between those lines, a veiled threat that if he cooperates and if the DOJ cooperates with him, that he will send a message to his base that they should stand down. Basically, we've already seen that FBI has been invaded, so to speak, and that people's lives have been threatened and are in danger. And so Trump is saying in this motion, which is a legal document, that he can tone it down if, in fact, the DOJ cooperates with him and he cooperates with the DOJ.
So does this play a role in a legal argument, or does this just happen to be in a legal document?
Well, I think that the judge should not take that seriously. And in fact, the judge should only look at the legal arguments. And the legal arguments would basically be whether or not these documents should be turned over and whether or not there was a right to take the documents in the first place. And the warrant actually cited various statutes under Title 18, which is the criminal code, saying that, in fact, you are not allowed to be taking these documents or having them in your possession. And he could face technically years in prison, up to 20 years under one of the statutes. And so supposedly the judge is going to just look at the legal arguments. And I think the political arguments should definitely be put to the side.
Catherine, how did this whole case even start? What made the government start looking into whether Trump had taken classified material?
Well, look, in the final days of Trump's presidency, it became clear that he would bring some of these documents up to the residence, for example. There had to be some sort of document retrieval. The White House has to make sure all these documents are getting to the National Archives. So it became clear that they all weren't heading over to the archives, for example. And this has been going on since he left, but also since January, when the archives originally retrieved 15 boxes from Mar-a-Lago. Because they retrieved that information and went through it, it became clear there were more missing, more documents missing. And the government still doesn't know if they have all of these documents. So again, this has become clearer to them as they've gone through this. We know that various other committees, for example, the House committee investigating January 6th, unrelated investigation, but they've also requested documents as part of their investigation from the archives. That prompts the archives to then go through those documents. Potentially, there were more missing that they learned of.
Okay, so long story short, so Trump may have documents. Think about this. You have documents from the CIA, the FBI, and the NSA. That's basically the Espionage Act. 300 plus documents, and Trump is trying to subpoena them and claim executive privilege. Sometimes I really, really wish one of Donald Trump's lawyers would explain to him how the Constitution works. You don't get to claim executive privilege if you're no longer the president. It doesn't work that way. But again, I think it's going to be heading to a point to where Trump's going to have to answer for this. Now, do I think this is going to derail him from 2024 presidency? Coin toss, might. But a lot of the people that he backed, 80% of the people that he backed did get elected in their primaries. So there's that. But again, you don't think for 1 second he doesn't want to be president again, you are definitely out of your mind. But still, 300 classified documents somehow got out of the White House and wound up in Mar-a-Lago. He's complaining about the FBI search procedure, which was done legally. But that just goes to show you, it makes you wonder what else is in those documents. Because if there's anything of national security, anything regarding nuclear weapons, anything regarding information on our allies or our enemies, and you don't think Trump will use any of that to save his own skin or to get a little bit more capital, you were crazy. But 300 documents, it's going to kind of hard to sit there and say that it's a small uh-oh. All I'm pointing out. But switching gears for a second, guys, school, yes, for a lot of kids, actually it should be for all kids, school is back in session as they begin the I guess you can call it the beginning of the fall winter part of school. That being said, however, there are some schools that are not really open per se because, again, the attack on education still keeps going, and teachers and educators are taking a stand.
Morning with back to school in full swing nationwide. Teachers are testing districts by marking themselves absent.
There is no substitution for good and great teachers.
In Columbus, Ohio, the state's largest district, public school teachers are on strike for the first time in nearly 50 years. Their demands include smaller class sizes and air conditioning in every school. With classes set to start tomorrow, the district is scrambling to find substitutes.
Our community's children are the board's priority, and our final offer, we felt, did reflect that.
We are doing this for the students.
The Columbus Clash, the latest classroom flashpoint. Over the weekend, roughly 2,000 custodial and transportation workers in Philadelphia public schools also voted to strike, demanding better pay and...
You all want active shooter training.
They're asking for the training that you'd think they'd be getting already.
A sobering stressor for modern teachers who also balance ever-changing COVID restrictions and soaring rates of anxiety among students. It's taking a toll, with an estimated 300,000 public school teachers and staff having left the field between February 2020 and May 2022. A recent NBC News poll finding just 25% of parents are confident public schools will be adequately staffed this year. In Columbus, after years of remote learning, mom Kristen McCormick worries how her first grader Ezra will feel when his teacher isn't in class Wednesday.
We have struggled as a family to maintain a sense of normalcy and a routine. So this is just sort of another log on the fire.
And of course, a lot of teachers say that key complaint, that common complaint, is that notoriously low pay. So to put this in perspective, according to one study, public school teachers make on average 20% less than professionals with similar education levels and experience.
Yeah, I mean, how many more ways can we say this? How many more ways can we say this? Teachers, educators have been saying this for decades. They don't get paid enough, and they don't. I don't know how many more ways we can say it. They don't get paid enough. They don't get the support they need. They don't really get the funding they should be getting. They don't get the help that they should be getting. Overcrowded classrooms, lack of materials. They're coming out of their own pocket to pay for certain supplies and things that they need. Let's not also forget the fact that they're having to still pay attention to all the kids in their classroom, even though the ratio of students to a teacher is nuts. But they still expect miracles to happen. And I keep saying this all the time. You want to fix the educational system. It's very easy. Pay teachers the same way you would probably pay. Let's just put it this way. Let's say the average teacher's salary is anywhere between $38,000 to $45,000 a year. Let's just say, in a crazy world, let's get crazy. Let's say a teacher's salary should be anywhere between $80,000 to $85,000 a year. Let's double that. Let's double that from the average salary of $35,000 to $45,000 a year. Let's bump that up to $80,000 to $85,000 a year. How many teachers will stay then? Let's actually give incentives. Let's actually fund these teachers the same way we fund the Pentagon. The Pentagon has a blank check, been having a blank check for years. Education has slowly been stripped every time the budget's done. Department education always suffers. Pentagon doesn't, but every year the Department of Education suffers. Every year schools have to figure out a way to make their budgets work. But they take away from programs like metal shop, wood shop, home economics, music, chorus, band, auto shops, welding, 4-H clubs. They take away those things that can really help students because, again, it's always coming down to money. And not only that, teachers want certain. I mean, you should have air conditioning in your room, especially if you're in Texas or hot, or God's hot plate, Florida. You should have air conditioning in every room. You should have smaller classrooms so you can give more attention to students. You can pay attention to their learning styles and actually be able to adapt to them, not have to worry about 45 kids in a classroom when it should be less than 20. We should be giving incentives for teachers to go into education. We should be giving incentives to become teachers, to become principals, things of that nature. We should be giving those incentives the same way you gave nurses incentive during the pandemic, because nurses were being burned out at hospitals to the point where traveling nurses got buku contracts. But I digress. We find ourselves in the same area again. And that's only part of the problem. Part of the problem is teachers' schools not getting help. The other part of the problem, as I'm about to go into, you have these parents that above all else feel like they need to be in control of their child's education. And I've said it more times on this podcast, as well as said it on all our social media. Once you start attacking the public school education, a lot of teachers are going to step out the way and say, okay, you want to teach your child so bad? Go right ahead. See how difficult it is. The reason why I say that, guys, is because this story that I got right here, conservative activists have decided to go after a library and ban 400 books. The problem is with this specific library, those 400 books are not even that specific library. And do you want to know what books they were talking about? Their 400 titles primarily focused on young adult books with LGBTQ characters, scenes describing sexual activity or invoking the occult. You can only imagine which ones they're talking about. Because, Harry Potter seems to be a big one. It's witchcraft or people of color, because nobody wants to feel bad about reading To Kill a Mockingbird knowing it's about racism. Yes, that's the entire point of the book. At the same time, this is actually a public library that's in Bonners Ferry, Idaho, which has complaints about this. And it's amazing that the activists in this town want those books banned because they don't even have them yet. But they're saying that this is going to promote pedophilia or train or brainwash kids to follow certain things, indoctrinate them. I'm sorry. It amazes me so that if all the religious quote unquote Christian Catholic schools that we have in the US, and you're worried about a library indoctrinating kids, you're worried about a library. You got to be freaking kidding me. But again, this is why I sit there and say the whole entire time, guys, this is why I sit there and I say the attack on education is real. The fact that they are wanting to dumb down America instead of actually improving it is real. And the reason why these teachers are starting to leave their posts is real. They're not trying to help out. And the kibosh on all is, if you take away education, if you take away literature, what's next they're going to go for? Food. Because you would think in this day and age, 2022, with all our technology and resources, that we as parents should still not be worried about our child getting fed school lunches. But in this case, it's a reality.
Back to the classroom, there's new concern from parents about the public schools in their communities. Brand new NBC News polling finds just 37% of parents say they feel pretty confident in their school's ability to help students catch up with learning loss due to COVID. Even fewer say they feel very confident about schools having enough teachers and staff available to meet the needs of students. And just 30% say they are pretty confident in active shooter preparations. For the first time in 2 years, breakfast and lunch won't be covered for everyone now that a federal pandemic-era program has ended, leaving schools and families scrambling to cover the costs. Emily Ikeda explains.
In front of you? Yes.
Single mom Jamie Bunges has relied on free or reduced price lunches for her 4th grade son since he was in kindergarten.
What does that extra money mean to you?
Savings. I can put it towards groceries. I can put it in my gas tank.
She says paying for his lunch would cost her more than $1,000 a year.
I added it up and it was like $118 a month. And you do that times 9, it's over $1,000 a year. So to me, it was like, oh my gosh, because I also have to, buy groceries.
It's a lot of money for families already tight on cash, especially those impacted by the end of the federal free school lunch for all program, a pandemic era initiative that's now expired.
When you heard that program was ending, what was your reaction?
I was stressed, very stressed.
More than 26 million free meals were served every day because of the program. Now, families must apply for meal coverage, and only those meeting certain income requirements will receive the free lunches.
Nationwide, around 1 in 6 students don't always know where their next meal is coming from. Here in the Greeley-Evans School District, food insecurity is even more severe. 65% of students qualify for free or reduced price lunches.
But in this Denver suburb, they're doing something different. The school board has decided to allocate $2 million so every one of the 23,000 students in the district can still eat for free. Danielle Bach is the head of nutrition.
A lot of our families are just over the threshold of what qualifies them for the free and reduced meal program. So we know that those families don't necessarily have the money to pay for those meals.
While some believe universal free lunch should be made permanent, critics say it was only intended to be a pandemic-era program.
By returning these programs back to normal, we can uphold our responsibility to taxpayers and the principle that aid should be targeted and temporary.
But Bach argues this year is far from normal, as staffing shortages, supply chain slowdowns, and inflation further complicate lunchtime nationwide.
Our goal is to teach kids how to learn and think, but they can't do that when they're hungry.
Back to school, bringing back challenges in feeding America's children. Emily.
And think about that for a second. It is amazing. Always a conservative that wants to end a free school lunch program. Do you see why I sit there and say I can't really substitute? I can't really always swing with conservatives. Conservatives are always talking about cutting things. They will sit there and be pro-life until a child is born. They will sit there and starve a kid in school. They will sit there and be for the troops, but cut them off when they get back. This just goes to show you that you can sit there and say, well, the responsibility to the taxpayer. I'm sorry, but for me, if my taxes go to feeding kids in school, I'll gladly pay it. If my taxes will go to getting someone off student loan debt, again, I will gladly pay it. If my taxes can go to help people less fortunate than me to get a leg up in life and actually have a better shot at life, I'll gladly pay it. Why? I'm not a dick. That's why. But it amazes me so that we still in a society where school lunches shouldn't even be a question anymore. Again, this goes back to what I'm saying. When you take away, it's like how many more times when it comes to the Department of Education, which school lunches fall under? They've been cut. The Pentagon has yet to be cut. And again, I am looking at the Biden administration. I am looking at Kamala Harris, who, by the way, has been the most quietest vice president since Mike Pence. It makes no sense that it is 2022 and kids are still have to be worried about where their next meal is coming from. We should be better than this. That's all I'm saying. But to wrap this up, guys, before we get to our feel-good moment, another reason why I keep saying that we need to watch the companies that always tout about doing things, because again, guys, you've heard me say this. Asurion just a month ago let over 900 people go after boasting about record profits. Zoom, I think Zoom.com released 7,000 employees via a Zoom conference call, and that was messed up. Now, Ford's about to join the group as they're about to announce that they're going to be releasing 3,000 workers. The reason is a little confusing.
Story breaking in just the last hour about Ford. What do we know?
So, Kate, Aaron, it'll be a total of 3,000 jobs being cut at Ford, both of which are in North America. 2,000 jobs for salary positions, 1,000 for agency or contractor positions. A spokesperson for the auto giant has confirmed that it began notifying affected workers earlier today. It's all about streamlining operations, and Ford says it needs to evolve for its future, guys.
That's it. That it needs to streamline and evolve for its future. Because if there's anything that a multi-billion-dollar automaker should be doing, is streamlining and downsizing. Has nothing to do with the fact that they're trying to make bids for electrical vehicles since the semiconductor bill got passed about 2 weeks ago. The point I'm making is just that this is the reason why I sit there and say corporations can no longer cry about loyalty when they will gladly cut people for business decisions. And I've always hated that. I've hated that when people say when businesses cut employees, it's a smart decision. But when employees leave a business, they say the employees are making it bad for everybody else. Or this new thing that you probably heard out there, quiet quitting. You know, when I first heard that, I had to ask questions. I had to ask, what is quiet quitting? Someone sat there and said it. It's basically doing the minimum requirements for your job, and then you're done for the rest of the day. For most people, that's your job. It's not quiet quitting. It's doing exactly what you signed up for. And then once that's completed, you close the laptop, you leave, you go enjoy the rest of your life. A lot of businesses out there are starting to sit there, and a lot of baby boomers. Yes, a lot of baby boomers out there. Not all of you. Some of y'all are starting to do this whole thing about you guys are out there quietly quitting. I remember back in my day when you worked hard. I said, yes, but back in your day, sir or madam, back in your day, you did not have a credit score. You did not have a fair Isaac Corporation where your life was decided by 3 numbers. You didn't have your price of everything was not inflated. You could get a 2-bedroom apartment. You could get a house. You could get a car. You could get an education for less than $1,000 a semester. You could have gotten all these things available to you, and then you, the baby boomers, got older. You, the baby boomers, started changing things. You, the baby boomers, destroyed the corporate ascension ladder that you guys preach about so much that is almost unattainable for people of my age and younger. Yes, baby boomers are responsible, but are responsible for the decline, partly in case. But at the same time, quiet quitting is nothing more than a corporate buzzword to justify how businesses are trying to deal with employees, because employees are finally wising up to the thing is there is no such thing as corporate loyalty. Corporations will hire you one day and will cut your legs out you from another day. And I explain this all the time. It is amazing how many times when you're leaving a company, you give a 2-week notice. But when the company's ready to get rid of you, you get nothing but a handshake and a pat out the door. Do what is best for you. But quiet quitting is just up there with all lives matter and blue lives matter. It's bullshit. That being said, guys, we're going to move on to our feel-good segment, because usually on the Frack Guy here, we do cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom and sometimes make you faith in humanity. But hey, it's hump day. It's Wednesday. We want to get you guys at least get into Friday, which is Thursday, with some good vibes. And hopefully some wise words from a 105-year-old farmer will do just that.
Finally tonight, America Strong, one of the nation's oldest farmers, gives us all a lesson in longevity. Earl Mallinger has a lot to be thankful for. Just last week, he celebrated 105 years on this earth, still tending to his 1,000-acre farm in Oslo, Minnesota. He's one of the oldest working farmers in the country.
There's the kernel.
Growing sugar beets, wheat, and soybeans.
I like to be out with people and look at the crops. Well, I call myself a windshield farmer now.
These days, he hires others to do the field work, but he still makes all the decisions for his farm. He's seen many advances in farming over the decades, from using hand tools to modern machinery today. In fact, he credits farming with helping with his longevity.
Farming is a very good business to be in. It's exercise, fresh air, and you keep active.
One of his secrets to living a long life?
Keep moving. Once you quit moving, you'll go downhill pretty fast.
He started golfing at 75 and played until just a few years ago. And for more than 30 years now, every Tuesday, you can find him here at a group for widows and widowers. Mallinger said he feels blessed to have spent his life farming and enjoying the fruits of all his labor, which now include his large extended family of 60 great-grands and grandchildren, sharing these words of advice today.
Stay humble, and with the help of God, you don't have to worry. Don't sweat the small stuff.
Known for
I can't blame him. Sometimes it's best to keep it simple. I do like the fact that even 105, he gives the most great. He does give the best advice. Keep moving, keep active. When you sit down, that's when everything starts breaking down. I get that. And also, don't sweat the small stuff. I dig that. Really, I do. But with that being said, guys, that's going to do it for this podcast. So I do thank you all for liking, for watching, for commenting when this goes live. I certainly appreciate that. Some shameless plugging before I do get out of here, guys. I do want to shout out to my buddy Vaughn, Big VZA Don on Facebook. Big VZA Don on all socials. But hey, about Westwood on Facebook. Definitely check him out, as he is definitely out and about, especially on TikTok, with his "What is Big VZ Thinking" questions. It's interesting. I'll say that much. But definitely check him out. Of course, I can be found on all socials at BlockFox447. Just like me and follow me on almost everything. I do post everything that I watch and review, and also some gym stuff, because I do a couple push-ups. Same time, guys, I'm all about motivation, pushing people forward, and actually trying to be more positive, just because we do need to be kinder, to be nicer to each other. I'm not asking to be flat out, overall good Samaritans, but I'm asking to be decent, to be kind, because we don't know what another person is going through in life. And always check up on your people. You never know, by saying hi or hello or seeing how they're doing. You may do more by brightening up their day. You actually may save a life in the process. So again, it takes 0 energy to be nice. It takes 100% of your energy to be a dick. So be freaking nice. That's all I'm saying. As you can see at the bottom, guys, where I do have the trailer for the link, let me actually make that just a wee bit bigger. If you copy and paste that into your browser, it'll take you to my link tree that has the YouTube and Facebook groups for all of my podcasts. How the Frack Out Here, Get Bit, and of course, Offense Podcast. Definitely like, share, and subscribe. And again, if you like what I did, let me know. If you have differences in opinions on everything we covered, let me know. I still want to continue the conversation on this. That being said, guys, also please be careful if you're out and about. Corona, monkeypox, and its variants are all out there. Please protect yourself. Wear a mask. Also, if you're feeling sick, stay home. Because trust me, we are still in a pandemic area, but the only way we're going to beat this is by protecting ourselves. Therefore, we are helping each other. That being said, guys, last thing to say about how the Frack Out Here, it's all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel. We are simply giving you all the information, allow you to make up your own mind for yourself. But we're providing a logical perspective that goes along with it. We do better as society once we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right the wrongs of our past by making decisions now that we should have done back then, like electing our first Black woman to the Supreme Court, electing our first Black woman to the Federal Board of Governors, electing our first Black 4-star military general. When we don't learn from history, we are doomed to repeat it. That's why we keep asking ourselves, why does everything go up by our paycheck? Why are we electing different politicians but still the same old game in Congress? And most importantly, how the Frack got here. Thank you all for watching, guys. Take care of yourselves and each other. We will all get through this. Peace.